Arrival on Earth. The sleek, silver spacecraft pierced through Earth's atmosphere, its alien markings glinting in the sunlight. Inside, a dozen Zorgax Academy cadets buzzed with excitement, eagerly peering out the viewports at the lush planet below. "I can't believe we get to train on Earth," Cadet Zorax exclaimed, his purple skin flushing with anticipation. "I heard the gravity here is so light, we'll be able to jump over buildings." "Don't get cocky," cautioned their commander, a stern, scarred Zorgax named Thraser. "We're here to learn how to adapt to new environments, not show off." As the ship touched down in a remote forest clearing, the cadets assembled in the airlock, their sleek gray uniforms pristine and their stances confident. Commander Thraser faced them, his golden eyes sharp. "Listen up, cadets. Earth may seem like an easy training ground, but do not underestimate it. Your mission is to learn to move and function in this alien gravity. Keep your minds open and your senses sharp. Adapt, improvise, and grow. Am I clear?" "Yes, Commander," the cadets barked in unison. "Good," Thraser nodded. "Now let's see what this planet can teach us." The airlock hissed open, and the cadets stepped out onto Earth's soil, ready to begin their greatest challenge yet. Little did they know, the planet's easy gravity was about to put them to the ultimate test. Initial struggles. As soon as the cadets set foot on Earth, they realized their expectations of effortlessly conquering the planet's gravity were drastically mistaken. The first few steps sent them stumbling and lurching like newborn fawns, their normally graceful movements thrown completely out of balance. Zorax, who had been so eager to leap tall structures in a single bound, found himself flailing wildly as he attempted to jump over a small log. His legs propelled him much farther than anticipated, sending him careening into a tangle of brush with a yelp of surprise. Across the clearing, his squad mate Kailona fared no better. The lithe blue-skinned cadet tried to execute a simple roll, only to find herself tumbling uncontrollably across the forest floor, leaves and twigs catching in her short, spiky hair. One by one, the cadets fell victim to the deceptively light gravity, their bodies overcompensating for movements that should have been second nature. They crashed into trees, tripped over roots, and collided with each other in a chaotic dance of flailing limbs and bruised egos. Commander Thraser watched from the sidelines, his face an unreadable mask as he observed his usually poised and coordinated cadets reduced to a tangle of awkward, uncoordinated movements. He had anticipated some initial adjustment, but the extent of their struggle caught him off guard. As the cadets picked themselves up, brushing off dirt and nursing wounded pride, Thraser realized this mission would be far more challenging than anyone had anticipated. Earth's gravity, so seemingly innocuous, was proving to be a formidable foe, one that would test his cadets' adaptability like never before. With a stern look, Thraser called the bedraggled group to attention. It was time for a new approach, one that would force them to confront their weaknesses and learn to work with this alien environment, not against it. The real training was about to begin. Learning from the locals. Frustrated and bruised, the Zorgax cadets regrouped at the edge of the clearing, their once immaculate uniforms now smudged with dirt and torn by errant branches. As they nursed their wounded pride, a sound caught their attention. Laughter, bright and carefree, emanating from beyond the tree line. Intrigued, Commander Thraser motioned for his cadets to follow as he crept towards the source of the noise. As they approached, they found themselves overlooking a small playground where human children were engaged in a lively game of tag. The cadets watched, mesmerized, as the children ran, jumped, and pivoted with an ease and grace that seemed to defy the very gravity that had so thoroughly thwarted them. They leaped over obstacles, rolled across the grass, and changed direction on a dime, their movements fluid and effortless. "Look at how they move," Kailona whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's like they're not fighting the gravity at all. They're working with it." Zorax nodded, a glimmer of understanding dawning in his eyes. "We've been trying to overpower it, to force our bodies to move the way we're used to. but they've adapted. They let the gravity guide them. Commander Fraser looked on, a flicker of approval crossing his stern features. "Observe closely," he instructed. "These humans have spent their entire lives in this gravity. They understand it in a way we do not. If we are to succeed here, we must learn from their example." Over the next few hours, the cadets studied the children at play, noting the way they used their momentum, adjusted their balance, and flowed with the gravity rather than against it. Slowly, tentatively, they began to mimic the humans' movements, letting go of their rigid training and allowing their bodies to find a new equilibrium. Progress was slow, and there were still plenty of missteps and tumbles. But gradually, the cadets began to find their footing. They learned to gauge their jumps, to use their core for balance, and to anticipate how the lighter gravity would affect their trajectories. As the sun began to set, the cadets returned to their ship, sore and exhausted, but with a newfound appreciation for the challenges and opportunities Earth's gravity presented. They had taken their first steps towards truly adapting, and though the path ahead was still long, they now had a roadmap to follow. In the coming days, they would continue to study and learn from the humans, honing their skills, and developing new techniques to thrive in this alien environment. Earth's gravity was no longer an adversary to be conquered, but a teacher to be embraced, and embrace it they would. Unexpected challenge. Just as the Zorgax cadets were beginning to find their footing in Earth's gravity, a new challenge emerged. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the air grew heavy with the promise of rain. Commander Fraser, recognizing the signs of an impending storm, ordered the cadets to continue their training in a nearby field. They would need to learn to adapt to Earth's weather as well as its gravity, and there was no time like the present. As the cadets filed into the open space, the first fat drops of rain began to fall, spattering against their uniforms and the hard-packed earth beneath their feet. They exchanged uneasy glances, unused to training in such conditions, but quickly fell into formation at Fraser's barked command. The drill began smoothly enough, with the cadets practicing their newly acquired techniques for maneuvering in Earth's gravity. But as the rain intensified, the once solid ground turned slick and muddy, adding a new layer of difficulty to their movements. Zorax, midway through a leap, found his landing compromised by the slippery ground. His feet slid out from under him, sending him careening into Xylona with a surprised yelp. The two went down in a tangle of limbs, splattering mud across their uniforms and faces. Around them, the other cadets fared no better. The combination of light gravity and treacherous footing made even the simplest movements a battle against the elements. They slipped, skidded, and collided with each other, frustration mounting as the rain pounded down ever harder. In the midst of the chaos, Commander Fraser's voice cut through the storm. "Adapt," he roared over the howling wind. "Use what you've learned. Work with the environment, not against it." Slowly, painfully, the cadets began to find their balance once more. They widened their stances, lowered their centers of gravity, and used their momentum to carry them through the slick patches. They helped each other up when they fell, using their combined strength to steady one another against the driving rain. As they struggled through the drill, something began to shift within the cadets. They found themselves thinking back to the human children they had observed, remembering how they had laughed and played even in the midst of a downpour. The humans hadn't let the rain stop them. They had simply adapted their games to the new conditions. With renewed determination, the cadets pushed through the final steps of the drill, their movements growing surer and more fluid with each passing moment. By the time Fraser called a halt, they were soaked to the skin and splattered with mud, but there was a fire in their eyes and a newfound respect for the resilience of the humans who called this planet home. As they huddled together beneath the shelter of their ship, waiting for the storm to pass, the cadets reflected on the lessons they had learned. Earth's gravity and weather had tested them in ways they had never anticipated, but through those trials, they had grown stronger and more adaptable. They had learned to find balance in the face of adversity, to work together in the midst of chaos, and to appreciate the indomitable spirit of those who thrived in this challenging world. With renewed purpose, they looked to the future, ready to face whatever challenges Earth and the universe beyond might throw their way. Rescue mission. Just as the storm began to abate, a distress call crackled over the Zorgak ship's communication system. A nearby human settlement had been struck by a powerful earthquake, leaving many trapped beneath the rubble of collapsed buildings. Local rescue teams were overwhelmed, and they were desperately calling for any available assistance. Commander Fraser turned to his cadets, a determined glint in his eye. "This is what we've been training for," he said, his voice steady and sure. "It's time to put our new skills to the test and show what we're truly capable of." Without hesitation, the cadets volunteered for the rescue mission, their earlier struggles and frustrations forgotten in the face of this urgent need. They gathered their gear and set out towards the stricken settlement, ready to do whatever it took to save lives. As they approached the scene of the disaster, the cadets were greeted by a landscape of devastation. Buildings lay in ruins, their walls crumbled and roofs caved in. The air was thick with dust and the cries of the trapped and injured. Undaunted, the cadets fanned out, using their newfound agility and control to navigate the treacherous terrain. They leaped over piles of rubble, using the planet's light gravity to their advantage as they searched for survivors. Zorax, honing in on a faint cry for help, found himself face to face with a collapsed apartment complex. Somewhere inside, a child was trapped, their small voice growing weaker with each passing moment. Without a second thought, Zorax plunged into the unstable structure, using his enhanced senses to guide him through the maze of shattered concrete and twisted metal. The building groaned and shifted around him. But he pressed on, determined to reach the child before it was too late. Across the settlement, Silona and her team were working to free a group of elderly humans from the ruins of a community center. The light gravity made it easier to shift the heavy debris, but the unstable footing and jagged edges still posed a significant challenge. Silona coordinated her team's efforts, using the skills they had honed in training to work efficiently and safely. They braced each other against the shifting rubble, using their combined strength to lift and clear the larger pieces. Throughout the settlement, the other cadets faced similar challenges, each drawing upon the lessons they had learned on Earth to overcome the obstacles in their path. They worked tirelessly, their dedication and determination fueled by the knowledge that every second counted. As the sun began to set on the devastated landscape, the last of the survivors were pulled from the rubble, battered but alive. The cadets, exhausted but triumphant, regrouped at the edge of the settlement, their uniforms torn and their faces streaked with sweat and grime. Commander Fraser looked out over his team, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "You have done well," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Today, you have shown the true strength and spirit of the Zorgaks. You have proven that by adapting to adversity, by working together, and by putting the needs of others before your own, there is no challenge too great to overcome." The cadets stood a little straighter, their eyes shining with pride and a newfound sense of purpose. They had come to Earth expecting a simple training mission, but what they had found was something far greater. They had discovered the power of resilience, the strength of unity, and the unbreakable spirit that bound all living beings together. As they prepared to return to their ship, the cadets knew that the lessons they had learned on Earth would stay with them forever. They had been forged in the crucible of this planet's gravity and tempered by the challenges they had faced, and they emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate for it. Lessons learned. As the Zorgak ship lifted off from Earth's surface, the cadets gathered in the observation deck, their eyes fixed on the receding planet below. The blues and greens of the world that had been their training ground swirled beneath them, growing smaller with each passing second until it was nothing more than a marble suspended in the inky blackness of space. Commander Fraser stood at the front of the room, his gaze sweeping over the assembled cadets. They had been through so much in such a short time, and the change in them was palpable. Where once there had been arrogance and certainty, there was now a quiet introspection and a newfound respect for the challenges they had faced. "You have learned much on Earth," Fraser began, his voice carrying the weight of experience. You have seen how a seemingly insignificant factor, like a planet's gravity, can have a profound impact on every aspect of life. You have learned to adapt, to improvise, and to find strength in adversity. The cadets nodded, each lost in their own memories of the trials they had endured. Zorax thought back to his initial struggles, how he had flailed and stumbled in Earth's light gravity. But he also remembered the moment of clarity when he had watched the human children at play, how they had moved with such fluid grace and ease. Philona recalled the chaos of the storm, how the rain and mud had conspired to thwart their every move. But she also remembered the feeling of triumph when they had finally found their balance, working together to overcome the elements. And all of them remembered the rescue mission, the fear and determination that had driven them to push past their limits in order to save lives. They had seen the very best of themselves in those moments, and it had changed them in ways they were only beginning to understand. But perhaps the most important lesson, Fraser continued, is one that the humans themselves embody every day. The lesson of resilience, of never giving up in the face of adversity. The humans live their entire lives in the gravity we found so challenging, and yet they do not let it define or limit them. They adapt, they innovate, and they find joy and purpose in the face of every obstacle. The cadets murmured in agreement, each thinking of the small moments of human strength and determination they had witnessed. The children playing in the rain, the rescuers working tirelessly to free the trapped, the survivors emerging from the rubble with hope still shining in their eyes. As we return to the stars, Fraser said, his voice growing stronger, let us carry these lessons with us. Let us remember that growth and success lie not in avoiding challenges, but in embracing them. Let us learn to find balance in the face of change, to work together in the pursuit of a common goal, and to never lose sight of the indomitable spirit that resides within each of us. The cadets stood a little taller, their eyes shining with a new sense of purpose. They had come to Earth as students, but they were leaving as something more. They were leaving as leaders, as innovators, and as ambassadors of the resilience and adaptability they had learned from the humans. As the ship hurtled through the void, Earth receding to a distant memory, the cadets knew that they would never be the same. They had been forged in the crucible of a foreign gravity, and they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected to the universe around them. And as they looked out into the infinite expanse of space, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter what strange new worlds and unexpected obstacles they might face, they would face them with the courage, determination, and unyielding spirit they had learned on a small blue planet called Earth. The journey was only beginning, but armed with the lessons of Earth's gravity, the Zorgax cadets were ready to take on the universe, one challenge at a time. The future was bright, and they would face it together, united by the bonds of experience and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit that now lived within each of them.